I don't usually tell this story, not because I'm scared of being called crazy. I stopped caring about that a long time ago, but because saying it out loud always feels like I'm calling it back somehow. But it's been years, and it still sits in the back of my mind like a lump of ice that won't melt. So, here goes. It happened during one of those heavy, windless summer nights when the air feels like it's holding its breath. I was at my neighbor's place. She lived just 3 houses down from mine on a quiet, dead-end street. Her name was Morella, an older Romani woman who everyone in the neighborhood adored. Always cooking, always humming, always ready with tea strong enough to wake the dead. That night, it was just 4 of us sitting around her kitchen table. Me, 2 guys from down the block, and Morella. We were telling dumb stories, teasing each other, half listening to the hum of cicadas outside. She had that warm, yellow kitchen light that made everything feel safe and small. I remember thinking it was one of those nights that would blur together with 100 others, ordinary, forgettable. Then the music started. At first it was faint, a slow rhythm, like distant drums muffled by fog. I thought it was a car stereo somewhere. But then a violin joined in, thin, mournful, vibrating through the air in a way that made the tiny hairs on my arms lift. It wasn't coming from a phone or a house or even down the street. It was coming from behind Morella's property, from the empty lot that bordered the woods. She went completely still. Her teacup froze halfway to her mouth. Then she put it down gently, looked at the back door, and said, very quietly, "Don't go out." No one laughed. Something in her tone had changed. No warmth, no humor, just warning. We all just sat there, listening. The music grew clearer, and it was live. You could hear feet moving in the dirt, clapping, strange foreign lyrics being sung low and rhythmic. It wasn't happy or sad. It was just old. The others started joking nervously, trying to break the tension. One of the guys, Brent, chuckled and said, "Maybe someone's throwing a gypsy wedding in your backyard." Morella didn't even look at him. She just said, "They've come back," and crossed herself. I thought she was being superstitious, until I saw the light through her back window, that kind of pale, smoky glow you get when fog rolls in under moonlight. But it wasn't fog. It was thicker, like smoke that never rose, just hung low and heavy over the grass. We all went quiet again. Then she whispered, "Don't look." But I did. Out in that open lot behind her fence, maybe 20, 30 yards out, there were shapes moving. Not clearly, just dim silhouettes swirling through the mist. At first I thought it was people dancing, like an outdoor party. But the longer I watched, the more wrong it felt. Their movements were too smooth, too slow, like the air itself was, dragging them along. One turned, and for a split second, I saw its face, or what should have been one, but it looked smudged, like someone had taken an eraser to its features. And yet, they were all keeping perfect time with the music. I backed away from the window. My heart was thudding so hard I could hear it over the drums. Morella whispered again, "It's the wedding. They do it when the veil's thin. Stay inside and they won't notice you." No one spoke. No one even breathed. But then, because people always ruin their own chances, Brent laughed. He said, "You're all insane. It's got to be teenagers with speakers or some projection trick. I'm going to go see." Morella's voice cracked. "Don't," she said, her eyes wide. "They'll see you." But he was already at the door. Our other friend, Rob, followed, saying, "If it's some kind of setup, I want to know." And just like that, the screen door slammed, leaving me and Morella alone in that too quiet kitchen. We watched from the window. They crossed the yard, flashlights bobbing in their hands. The fog swallowed their light almost immediately. The music shifted, slower, lower, like the tempo itself was watching them. The figures stopped dancing. Every single one turned toward the 2 lights moving through the mist. And then the lights went out. We leaned forward, eyes straining, but all we could see was fog. Then, one single drum beat, loud enough to shake the window pane. The music started again, but it sounded different now. Fuller. More voices. Morella whispered, "They've joined." I wanted to scream at her to stop, but the words wouldn't come. My mouth was dry as paper. After maybe 10 seconds, the fog began to thin. There was no one in the lot anymore. No figures. No lights. Just damp grass under moonlight. We ran outside, against every instinct in me. The air was freezing, though it had been warm moments before. The ground looked untouched. No footprints. No tire tracks. Just silence. We called their names until our throats hurt. Nothing. When the police came, they asked us the usual. How much we'd been drinking, what time we saw them last. Did they fight? Did they seem unstable? Morella just kept saying, "They left with the music." They marked it down as 2 missing persons. They searched the woods for days. Nothing ever turned up. I tried to move on. I really did. But a few weeks later I saw Morella again. She looked older. I mean years older. She said she couldn't sleep because she'd heard the drums again. And she said she'd seen them, Brent and Rob, standing at the edge of the fog, smiling and holding hands, swaying gently to the rhythm. I wanted to tell her she was imagining it, that grief was making her see things. But a month later, someone new on our street vanished. Young guy who liked to jog at night. And the next morning, Morella swore she heard another violin join the song. It's been nearly 10 years now. Morella's gone, passed away quietly in her sleep last winter. Her house sits empty. The city's talking about tearing it down, but no one will buy the land. Realtors won't even go near it after sunset. I drive by sometimes. The grass behind it has grown high, and every so often, when the night's still and the air feels too thick, I swear I can hear faint drumming drifting through the fog that clings to the field. Sometimes I think about what Morella said, that they wouldn't come inside as long as she had people with her. And I wonder what'll happen now that no one's left in that house. I don't look anymore, not even when I hear the music. Because I know if I do, I might see more faces in the circle. And this time, I think one of them might be mine. I don't care if people believe me or not. I'm not writing this for validation. I just need to let it out. What happened to me over a decade ago still loops in my mind every time the house creaks, every time I hear something I can't explain. When I was 17, I had to move in with my dad. We'd never been close. The few times we'd spoken growing up, the conversations usually ended with slammed doors and bruised feelings. So when life forced me into that house, I was dreading it before I even packed my bag. The house itself didn't help. It was a tall Victorian thing that looked elegant from the outside but rotted on the inside. High ceilings, crown molding, and wooden floors that groaned under the lightest step. The kind of house where the air always felt a little too still, like it was waiting for something to happen. Before I moved in, my sister Jane gave me a warning. She'd lived there for a while, back when she and Dad still got along. She told me strange things used to happen in the room that would become mine. I thought she was teasing me until she told me the story about the CD player. She said one evening she was sitting downstairs with a dog when music started playing from upstairs. Not a faint hum, loud, distorted, like someone had slammed play at full volume. She went up, turned it off, came back down. The dog was barking, low and guttural, staring at the empty chair beside her. When she tried to calm him, the music came back on, louder. She went up again, unplugged the player from the wall, and left the plug hanging loose in her hand. Then downstairs, it started again. That's when she ran out of the house and didn't come back for weeks. I remember laughing when she told me, but the look in her eyes wasn't a joking one. There was a kind of fear there that made me feel cold. Still, I moved in. Things between me and my dad were exactly as bad as I'd feared. His moods came like storms, short and violent. I learned to stay quiet and keep to my room, which, of course, was the one Jane had warned me about. The first few nights, it was little things. Cupboard doors easing open, just enough to make noise. My lamp flickering, even with a new bulb. The air always cold, no matter how tightly I shut the window. Then the heavier things started. One night I woke up to a thud beside the bed. I thought the bulb in my lamp had fallen out again, but when I turned on my phone light, the bulb was still screwed in. The noise had come from inside the closet. I stood there for a while, staring at the door. I could feel my pulse in my throat. Finally, I reached for the handle. It was cold, colder than it should have been. Inside, nothing but my clothes. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had just stepped aside, out of sight. After that, sleep became rare. Sometimes I'd catch movement in the reflection of my TV screen. Not shapes, just flickers, like shadows bending when they shouldn't. And every once in a while, when the house was completely silent, I'd hear faint clicks from above, like wood flexing under a slow, deliberate weight. The attic was right above my room. The hatch sat in the hallway, a square piece of wood with peeling paint and a single iron ring to pull it down. I avoided walking under it, but one night I didn't have a choice. I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom, door half open, when I heard it. A dull, heavy bang, so loud I thought the ceiling had cracked. My dad came thundering up the stairs, yelling, "What the hell did you do?" The attic hatch had swung open and slammed into the wall, leaving a fresh dent beside the first one. Apparently it had happened before. I tried to tell him I hadn't touched it, that I couldn't even reach that high, but it didn't matter. He called me a liar, slammed the door, and went back downstairs muttering. The next morning, when he left for work, I tested it myself. I climbed on the banister, nudged the hatch up, and let it fall. It didn't even come close to the wall. It stopped halfway down, swinging gently. Something would have had to push it hard from below to hit that wall. That realization sat in me like a stone. I stopped using the upstairs bathroom. I'd wait until morning, anything to avoid walking under that hatch again. But one night, around 2 a.m., I couldn't hold it. The whole house was silent, the kind of silence that hums in your ears. I stepped out, keeping my eyes on the floor, trying not to look up, but I couldn't help it. The attic hatch was slightly open. Not much, maybe half an inch. Just enough to see darkness where there shouldn't be any. I stood there frozen, toothbrush still in hand, until it suddenly slammed shut. The noise echoed down the hall. I ran back to my room and locked the door, though I didn't know what good that would do. That night I heard footsteps above my ceiling, slow, pacing ones. When I told my dad the next day, he barked a laugh and said it was rats. But there was no scurrying, no scratching, just steps, spaced apart. A few days later, I woke up to find the attic hatch open again. I hadn't heard it this time. It just hung there, swaying gently like someone had climbed down moments before. And then came something worse, evidence that someone had. I was sitting on my bed tying my shoes when I noticed the attic ladder wasn't all the way up. It hung lower than usual. That was when I saw the footprints. Not clear, but smudged into the dust on the floor, leading from the hatch to my door. I felt sick. I couldn't even scream. I just sat there staring until my dad shouted from downstairs, asking why the hell I was making noise. I didn't answer. I left the house that day, stayed with a friend for a few nights. When I came back, my dad said he'd fix the attic latch, tightened the screws, and set a padlock on it. He said he'd put the rat problem to bed. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept. Then around 3 a.m., I woke up to a faint metallic click, the sound of a padlock being undone. I stared at my ceiling, heart hammering, afraid to move. No footsteps this time, just breathing, the slow, heavy sound of someone exhaling through their nose. I turned on the lamp. The noise stopped. The attic hatch was still shut. The padlock glinted faintly in the light. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined all of it. Then, just before I switched the lamp off again, I noticed the dust on my desk, disturbed, as if someone had brushed a hand across it while I slept. I moved out the next morning. I never went back. Years later, when my dad sold the house, I asked him if the new owners ever complained about the attic. He laughed, said they'd renovated the top floor. They said it was full of junk, he told me. Old clothes, empty boxes, and a mattress up there. A mattress, that still gets me. Because if that mattress was already there, then who or what was moving around above me all those nights?